Good afternoon. This is New World News, keeping you up to date on the latest events concerning the revolution. Here's Noah with the first story.
Thanks, Holden. The tides of war might change now. Sending over Benjamin Franklin and John Adams over to France to gain support of the French might be a significant game changer in our revolution. But I'm just now getting breaking news that there is confirmed reports that John Adams and Benjamin Franklin have reached France via boat. This amateur sketch drawing depicts what it might look like when they arrive.
Why would the French help us out, Noah?
The French will be willing to help us because they have some beef with Britain ever since they lost the 7 Years' War. And so they're probably hoping to resell the score and gain some lost territory that they lost to the British during that time.
The 7 Years' War was a conflict involving France and Great Britain that started on 1754 when the British attacked disputed French positions in North America and took over hundreds of French merchant ships. The war eventually ended with Treaty of Paris among Spain, France, and Great Britain, with Great Britain gaining the most from it, including French colonies in North America, causing heavy debt for the French after the war, which would make the French more likely to help out the Americans against the British.
Right. That's called balance of power when nations come together in order to prevent one nation from becoming too powerful.
And so we're hoping that by sending John and Ben that they will win over France's favor and helping us out in the war, which could be a significant game changer, since, as you know, we have been struggling in this revolution against the British. Holden can fill you in on the details.
Right. So we have lost some major cities and some major battles, so hopefully the French involvement will help us out.
The American Revolution prior to French involvement was on a decline, with the British capturing and winning decisive battles such as capturing the city of Philadelphia, which was the capital of the American colonies at the time, and as well as the British occupation of Boston. To make it even more difficult for the Americans, the British hired German mercenaries called Hessians to fight for them in the Revolution, which made battles a lot more fierce due to the Hessians being extremely brutal. This faced General Washington with many problems, such as deserters who saw no point of staying and returned to their farms and businesses to tend to their crops. This also faced General Washington with strategic difficulties as to what to do next, and so the Americans were in desperate need of an ally who would help them in the war.
We go to Noah. It's possible.
It's true. The French involvement will help us tremendously on our side of the conflict by sending us a bunch of ammunition, money, and their Navy, which is a key perk in this because, their Navy is really close to challenging the British Navy.
Right. And what impact could their Navy have on helping us win the war, Noah?
Well, the French Navy is able to do a lot of things, but mainly what we think they could do is distract the British in Europe by just engaging them in the Atlantic by, sinking their merchant ships and, destroying some of their fleets. So, that could impact the British economy. And it could really help us by taking Britain's mind off of us for a while, and so that could give us a chance to, reorganize, get more troops.
The significance of the French Navy is that we could think the Americans could use the French Navy in order to take back some lost territory and to checkmate the British. What specifically we could use it for is unknown at the moment, but it could be able to help us take back Boston from the British.
After a long voyage, Benjamin Franklin and John Adams had convinced France to join the war against the British by aiding the Americans financially and military-wise. Along with sending France's fleet to the North American theater, they sent about 1.3 billion livres and troops to fight against the British. The most decisive battles that the French participated in was the Siege of Yorktown with the surrender of British and German forces, and the Siege of Boston, where the French Navy blockaded the exit out of Boston, and so the Americans were able to fight their way into Boston until the British had no way of escaping and then were eventually forced to surrender. All of this contributed to the final victory of the Americans in their war for independence.
That seems to be a foolproof plan, Holden. Now all we can do now is just hope that France will help us out and ally with us against Britain. This is New World News, signing off.